Hi everybody, it's Az here from Heel vs Babyface. So last Thursday, Blizzard announced the next World of Warcraft expansion to come. It will be called Legion, and the Burning Legion will start to invade Azeroth. Now, unlike BlizzCon 2013, they decided to play things a little bit closer to their chests this time. They didn't give us too much information about the expansion, with the fear, of course, if they have to cut content, and we got a lot of standard stuff which we would have expected. The level cap is going to increase, there's a new continent for us to explore, etc. But on the new features which they're potentially bringing into this expansion, there was one that really stood out to me, and the reason why it stood out to me is because it equal parts excited me and scared the living crap out of me at the same time. So how does one feature get that sort of polarizing vibe within myself? Well, I am talking about the artifact weapon system. And I'm going to go into the reasons why I think this could be a really cool idea. And I'm also going to go into the reasons why I think this could also turn out to be a horrific idea as well. So first things first, let's focus on the pros. The concept itself makes my extremities tingle. We are literally going to be able to wield weapons of law, and I'm talking about the most revered weapons that this game has ever created. Ashbringer, Doomhammer, even reforging the broken Frostmourne into two single-handed swords. When you mention these names, people prick up their ears. They know exactly what you're talking about. They know exactly the lore and the ethos which surrounds them. So the fact that you yourself are going to be able to wield them is unbelievable and just beyond exciting. And also the diversity with which they're looking to offer. I believe there's going to be 36 or something different artifact weapons, one for each spec for each class, because they want to have a tank to have a different weapon than a DPS, than a healer, etc, etc. So there's always going to be that diversity within the class, so it doesn't look like everybody is holding the same weapon. And also, the potential to build content around this piece is absolutely intriguing. You can make some unbelievable quest lines. You can make them really personal. You can also tie them into other forms of content, like the order halls, for example, where you're going to be able to go and see other people of the same class, but you're also going to be able to send champions out with you to fight. If they can combine these forms of content together, they can make upgrading your artifact weapon a really cool and interesting experience. And if they can break it away from the legendary side of things, I mean, the legendary grind is awful. It's horrible. It doesn't feel legendary. It just feels as if you want to blow your brains out. So if we can get good content surrounding this, this could be an absolutely boss piece of content to come into the World of Warcraft. But we've got to look at the cons as well, because there's a little bit of a meme going around the internet at the moment. Everybody gets an Ashbringer. I got an Ashbringer, you got an Ashbringer, everybody's got an Ashbringer. There is actually a reason why these weapons are so revered, and the reason why they are so revered is because we can't have them. You always envy what you can't have. And so we always hear about Ashbringer and Doomhammer, and we've seen Wrath of the Lich King and Arthas wielding Frostmourne, but none of us actually thought we'd get to wield them. Suddenly, there's 20 Reti paladins running around, and one comes in and says, "Hey everyone, I've got my Ashbringer." And then everyone else sticks their Ashbringer up in the air and says, "Yeah, well, we've all got one as well." Suddenly, the mystique of that weapon could really be lost, and it means absolutely nothing. Now, yes, there are going to be customization options as you increase the level and power of your artifact weapon. You will be able to reskin it, so to speak, by giving it a different tint. Don't want it to have a red tint? Change it to green or blue or yellow, etc, etc. Or you can actually evolve the weapon depending on how you progress the tree. But are people going to be purists? If somebody's got Ashbringer, do they just want to hold Ashbringer, or do they want it to make like a weird Ashbringer? It's going to be very intriguing to see how people actually decide to take this, whether they do decide to make their weapons look slightly different, or whether or not they go for the classic versions. And if everybody goes for the classic versions, then it's going to look very kind of monotonous indeed. Also, because we're going to be working on the artifact weapons literally from level 100, it's one of the first things which we're going to be able to get in the new expansion. There is going to be no weapon drops in Legion, and this really scares me. And the reason why it scares me is because one of the things that I enjoyed about getting loot, because loot is so readily available nowadays, it's literally thrown at you left, right and centre, was a weapon. And the reason why a weapon was rather exciting to me is because it was one of the very few things remaining that actually had a real impact on your stats and a real impact on your damage when you're out in the world, raiding, dungeoneering, etc. So to not be able to do that anymore, not have any fresh new drops come along, and the fact that you're just going to be upgrading the weapon, will that upgrading system have the same sort of excitement levels as getting a brand new weapon? Well, maybe it will, but maybe it won't. Maybe people will get slightly bored and think, it's great that I've got this, but I could have really just done with some progressive drops as time went on. So that's another thing which really concerns me. Another thing is the content that surrounds it. I've mentioned already that yes, they can create some really cool content if they maybe tied it in with the order halls and your champions and things like that, and made dungeons a little bit different. Maybe put some objectives in the dungeons which if you achieved, you could get your relics to upgrade your artifact weapon and all that kind of stuff. But let's be honest here, Blizzard's track record has been really poor over the last few years when it comes to this sort of thing. Will the artifact weapon merely turn into another awful grind? Go off and get 84 of them, go over and get 200 of them. If it goes into that method, it's going to get people actually hating their artifact weapon because it's just going to feel like a grind from start to finish. And that's exactly what you don't want when you're wielding such a renowned and such a prestigious weapon. It's the very last thing. And the very final thing which I want to say is, where do you go from here in the future? I mean, Tom Chilton in his recent interview with Yogscast talked about future expansions. So it doesn't look like Legion is going to be the final expansion, even though they seem to be throwing everyone and everything, including the kitchen sink, into the story. Ashara, the Legion invading, Illidan coming back, those two people which were missing for ages, they're coming back. There's so many different kind of storylines and threads going into this expansion, it really kind of like felt as if they were potentially wanting to close the World of Warcraft down. But with Tom saying, no, future expansions down the line, when we go to the next expansion, how do you recover from this? How do you suddenly go from wielding the most powerful weapon the game has ever created to Jerry's staff, which has better stats, and therefore you need to swap it out? It's going to be very interesting to see how Blizzard will transition from this expansion into the next expansion, or will artifact weapons literally now become a thing, and that will be the only weapon that we'll ever need now up until the end of the World of Warcraft. So this is why the artifact weapon system really excites me and really concerns me at the same time. But I'd be very intrigued to know what you have to say in the comments down below. How does it appeal to you? Does it? Doesn't it? Do you have concerns? Do you just have excitement coming out of your log holes? Do tell. And I hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, do give it a thumbs up and also subscribe. Follow me on social media and Twitch for live streaming. Those links are in the description down below. And I'll be back with more stuff very soon. You take care, everybody. Bye-bye.